What's going on, boys? It is day number 13 of reading through the book of Job. We are going to be taking a look at the second part out of 3 of Job's response to his friend Zophar. And tomorrow we will finish out that response, and then we will look at Eliphaz and a message that he gives to Job after tomorrow. So for today, we're going to be looking at another kind of message that Job gives as he, gives his, kind of thoughts about, what Zophar, I keep saying Eliphaz, what Zophar has said. And immediately off the start of chapter 13, the first set of verses there, and I want to actually skip verse 1, look at verses 2 and 3. Job makes kind of an incredible statement here. He says, "What you know, I also know. I am not inferior to you, but I desire to speak to the Almighty and argue my case with God." So, Job wishes to plead with God directly. But most importantly, he says, he's like, look, I feel that what you're telling me is true, and I am no different than you. I do believe that what you say about God being this Almighty God, that He controls everything around us, from the land to the birds to the water to the what we see in the sky, the constellations, the sun, and everything that we have. But I'm not. He's like, I'm not any different than you. He's like, but I desire to speak to God directly for what has happened in my life. He's like, he's like, well, yes, what you're telling me is assuring. He's like, for me, there's just still this kind of missing puzzle piece for me, as far as why I have lost everything, and there's been no sort of accused, or no sort of title that has been placed under this. And he's like, I search for that, but I can't find it. I can't figure out why these things have become the way they are. And as most of us can imagine, this is a very treacherous point in Job's life, where he is just, filled with this, negative sense of, I don't understand why this has happened, and I want to speak to the source. And what most importantly is that, in life, whether but imagine it like this, maybe something happens in your life, maybe something with your family, or with your work, or with, your relationship, or whatever. And, where is the most sort of issue solved? Is it when you hear from third-party source, or when you hear from the direct, root of the situation? And the answer to that is when you hear from the exact point of where it happened, the exact thing that caused it to be that way, whether it was a person or a reaction or just whatever. But we get the most of everything when we go to the source, because when we go to the source, we are able to really kind of make that assumption of, okay, well, this happened for this reason, and this is where something has to go. This is where things have to kind of build off each other, like Legos. Like, this piece goes here, and then this, and then this, and they just kind of build off one another and makes this tower. And that's kind of the thing that Job was looking for. He's like, look, I don't have anything else to stack on top here. Like, I'm here. I don't have this other piece. I need this other piece to stack on top to be able to, be able to grasp and make that assumption. Be like, okay, well, this is where I need to go. And this is where it brings me down to these next set of verses. I'm going to be jumping down a little far here. In verses 15, through 16, where he says, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face. Indeed, this will turn out for my deliverance. For no godless person would dare come before him." So through all circumstances, put your faith in God. Always put your faith in God, man. I can't tell you how many times, I have, found myself in situations to where I've maybe said something, or I've thought a certain thought, or have, done something, and I'm like, maybe I should have just done it that way. Maybe I should have just, taken my time, or maybe I should have just not even said that thing at all. Especially, when you're around people that maybe, you are, comfortable to joke around with, or, you feel that you can trust, but you don't feel that you can share your thoughts. Or maybe it's, you have this, inner feeling of, well, I thought it was this way, but no, it's actually that way. And most importantly, hardships that are, composed of many different challenges in our lives. Whether it's a certain person in your life or a certain feeling that you have, or this mental battle that you have, hardships lead us into better positions for later parts of life. And these later parts of life are different. They're not like these exact things to where, it's these, oh, I'm going to be at the top of this ladder. I'm going to be, over here on this pedestal. Like, it's not like that. It's more of a, if you work hard here, you may get somewhere great. There is no, timeline, or, there's no, say, how long is this going to take? Most of us, we hear, oh, we just have to, take some of this, or there's just a little bit more time we have to take. Well, it's like, well, how long is it going to be? It's always the how long, because a lot of us are impatient. And it's like, well, God said I have to wait, or I have to do this. Like, it's like, okay, well, how long do I have to go? How long is it until I get to that place where I need to be? And the answer to that is like, well, whenever God tells you. And I will say this again. I said this yesterday. That God has 3 responses. It's yes, no, and not yet. So I can always ask God, like, God, am I there? Or God, am I doing good? And you'll get one of those responses. I promise you will. I'm yawning. It's crazy. I'm trying to stay awake here, So I'm going to jump to the last verse real quick before I pass out on here. It's going to be verses 20 through 22. Where Job says, he makes these interesting requests to God. He says, only grant me these 2 things, God, and then I will not hide from you. Withdraw your hand from me and stop frightening me with your terrors. Then summon me, and I will answer you, or let me speak, and you reply to me. So, Job is like, hey, like, God, can you please, remove these things that are, frightening me in my life, these things that are scaring me from, seeing the lights, and allow me to speak to you. Allow me just to, open my thoughts up to you. Allow me just to share what I'm feeling to you. And, let me express my thoughts of, what I may have done, and how I can move on. Oh, yeah. Just stay awake. And for most of us, that's probably a question, or not a question, but a statement that we have towards God a lot of times. It's like, God, please understand me. But here's the best part. God already understands you. God understands you before you even have thought about him. And the other thing in life is you're never going to understand God fully. But what we do understand about God is that he's a loving God, and he cares for us. And you may think, well, how does he care for us? Like, why are all these bad things happening? Well, God's not the reason why evil happens. We are made to not to love God purposefully, or not to love God forcefully. We are made to live by our own wills. And if we choose to love God, that is the best thing for us. We have the ability to love a God who is the creator of the universe. And we live on this little planet in this big solar system, in this big galaxy, big universe. And God chose you, a speck of sand, out of the whole entire universe, and said, I want to have a relationship with you. How could you not want to accept that? And that is where we will leave off today. We will be concluding with Job's response tomorrow. I hope you guys had a great weekend. You guys are enjoying the weather, and I hope you guys have a great week. Peace out, boys.